Hello, I'm Somi Arian. I'm a tech philosopher and the founder of Impeak. My guest on today's podcast is Dirk Lueth, the co-founder of Upland, the largest virtual property strategy game mapped to the real world and one of the first attempts at building what we now call a metaverse. Dirk has a really fun and interesting story of how they came up with the idea for Upland. I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you do too. So, Dirk, tell me a little bit about the story of how you got started with this whole metaverse business. At what point did you think, yeah, I'm going to go and build a metaverse? How did that start?
Well, we actually had the idea like in late 2017, early 2018. Actually have two friends, Idan Zuckerman and Mani Honigstein. And we had one of those game nights, we meet here and there, and we were playing Monopoly, right? And everyone probably is aware what the game is about. It's a board game, right? We purchase streets and you collect them and to the same colors and all that stuff. So, and Mani and Idan, they were from the gaming space, and I was, dabbling around with lots of blockchain things and concepts, and so we sat together and said, what if, we take the idea of Monopoly, the inspiration here, take the real world, and the real world came actually from the idea because at that time we also watched Stranger Things, and I don't know if you see Stranger Things on Netflix. It's like a parallel world where we say, okay, why don't we take the real world? Of course, not like the monsters, but just the real world as a foundation. We take blockchain. We took the inspiration of Monopoly, and that's how actually Upland was born, right? And then when we incorporated in 2018, at that time, we said upland.me, like our URL, right, which stands for Metaverse. But at that time, we said, no one really knows what a Metaverse is. But we, from day one, we said, we want to really build this parallel world, which is eventually part of the Metaverse.
Wow, this is so interesting. So 2017, so would you say that you're the oldest metaverse? Is Upland?
Blockchain based, sure, right? I mean, of course you have games and you had Second Life and what have you out there, right? But I think we're one of the oldest ones. I don't know when, well, not true. Probably you had Decentraland and Sandbox also in the conceptual phase, and I don't know when they launched. But at that time, we even didn't look at them, right? So we were just focusing on our own concept at that time.
Maybe we should go back a little bit. So what makes a metaverse? Like, why is it that the concept of the metaverse and blockchain seem to be going hand in hand? Because in reality, that doesn't have to be the case, as we are seeing now with Facebook's Meta. Like, we don't necessarily need to have these two concepts together. So why was it that you thought I'm gonna like build this on the blockchain? Why was it blockchain based?
Yeah. So what is important? Of course, it always goes back. What is actually metaverse and all that? When you see parallel worlds and when you look at those closed, let's say, ecosystems, you look at Fortnite, Minecraft, you look at Second Life, Horizon from Meta, right? They call themselves Meta, but they're originally Facebook. So they're somehow closed shops, right? That means closed means they're not really open for the outside, even though some of them announced that they want to do something on the outside. But what is very important because is the idea that the metaverse stands for something which is completely new, what we have not seen before. And what I mean with that is that people own things in Upland, own or in the metaverse, blockchain-based metaverse, and truly own. You can always prove that ownership on the blockchain. And that was very important as part of the concept, because like in the real world, when you own something, you take care of it. When you own a house, right, you beautify it, you may take care, do all the repairs and whatever. If you're renting, not so much, right? So, and I think that's a fundamental assumption that we believe in, that will help that the metaverse will thrive.
Okay, super interesting. Okay, so the thing that actually made you think our metaverse should be blockchain based was the concept of ownership. That was the core of it.
That's the main, yeah, the ownership, and that you can prove it, right? But when you talk to, let's say average people and say, hey, true ownership, people will look at you, what does this actually mean? But if you tell them, hey, if you don't own it, you cannot sell it, then people say, oh, now I start to understand, right? Because if I always know that I can sell it or I can add value to it and sell it maybe for a higher price or so, that's where people start getting creative.
I remember last time when we spoke, you mentioned that you already have 3 million users.
So we have 3 million registered users, and we have roughly a little bit less than 300,000 landowners so far, right? So when we say we are mapped to the real world, because my background is, I'm an economist, right? And I always know what supply and demand means. In theory, we could have opened up the whole world, right? But that was just too much supply. So we only open up, certain cities in the US. We are live in 20 cities right now, which just recently opened up Rio de Janeiro. It's the first international city in Brazil. But what is important is that you don't give too much, inventory out, because then, prices prices go just not the way you want them, right? The economy is just not going to be stable. It's just not going to work. And that's why we know we have a limited amount of supply, limited amount of cities. But, as we are only, we only launched to Open Beta in early 2020, right? We are just slowly getting into it, and Upland is not being built out at all, right? We're just basically setting the foundation at the moment, where there were so much more things to follow, right? But I think with 300,000 landowners, which clearly makes us, one of the largest blockchain-based metaverses out there.
And these lands are essentially NFTs, right?
Yeah, every property you buy. So the way it works, actually, when you download Upland, you can actually download it as an iOS or Android app. You can also use the web. And when you zoom in, you get a map application, think like Google Maps. You zoom in, and then you see actually a property, which a real property parcel, right? Like the borders. And then you can purchase that piece of land, and then this is an NFT. Yes, and we have also other NFTs in Upland, but this is a typical NFT within Upland. And of that, we sold also a little bit more than 3 million so far.
Okay, that's interesting. So, because I've often wondered how many people are in the NFT space, and it's my understanding that from the different research, I don't think there's a definite data around it, that it's around 1 million or so people. Which it still seems quite high. When you are on Discord and, all these other different communities, it doesn't feel like it's 1 million. It doesn't seem to be that big. So 300,000 actually unique addresses that are using it seems quite a lot. So all of these locations are mapped based on the US at the moment. So for example, I can't go and find a property in London, no?
No, you cannot find. As I just mentioned, we have opened up Rio, right? But otherwise, it's just US. But we're soon going to open up Porto, because we have a partnership with FC Porto. And depending when we have partnerships in different cities around the world, then we open up those cities as well, right? So that's a little bit our opening of city strategy as such, right? So, but referring back to your topic is how many users you really, you have in crypto. There's not so many. That is true. That's also why in Upland, we were always very cognizant about that. We say, we don't want to go just after the crypto aficionados. We really want to go to the average people, right? Who just want to play. They want to, enjoy the game. They want to enjoy the metaverse. And that's, we did a survey within Upland. We found out that 65% of our users, they do not own NFTs outside of Upland. So what this tells us is that we are able to onboard lots of normal, quotation mark, let's say normal, but let's say non-crypto users, right? Because crypto users could assume that they purchase NFTs elsewhere. And this is what makes it super interesting, of course, in general, because, because we believe that we're on the right path here to really getting to a mass audience at the moment.
Very nice. So the secret here is fiat on-ramp, right? Like that they can buy these, so they don't know that they're buying NFTs.
Yeah, so exactly. So we're trying to avoid, sometimes, when we go after in crypto media, we use the word NFTs, right? But in general, we are avoiding this kind of words, because most people cannot really, work with it. So people understand, okay, I can buy a property and I can sell it and so on. So that's how we do it. But in terms of onboarding, what is so important is, so when we say, first of all, we said, where are the people? We said always mobile, where this is devices users are, using, their phones. That's the reason we always had a mobile first thinking. So that's the reason we are on iOS and Android. You don't find any other blockchain metaverse on the app store. So that's the first thing. Second thing is then onboarding is only with email and password. So you don't need to deal with private keys and wallets and so on. That's we're obfuscating that layer for the user. Even though as a company, we don't have access to the private keys, right? It's just a technical thing, but this is the way it works. And then the third thing is that we actually allow, which just said is fiat on-ramp. So you can, of course, purchase something in iOS and Android, right, via the App Store. But on the web, you can also use credit card or PayPal to purchase something. You can also use crypto for the crypto fans here, right? But in general, it's really making it easy for every average user to come on board. To extract monetary value, so let's say, how do you get then your dollars out? When you want to sell an NFT, you want to sell a property, or we have cars or other things to other players. If you want, as a player, you can sell those for US dollars, right, to other players. That's how you can then extract monetary value out of it again.
Okay, so what kind of activities take place on Upland right now? Like you mentioned playing. Is there games being played? What happens? So like I go and buy. Well, actually, I think I mentioned to you last time when we spoke that one of my clients who is 72 years old, actually, he bought land in Upland and he was quite excited about it. He was showing it to me, but I don't think I've seen him do anything with it. So like, what happens? Okay, you buy the land. Is there a social aspect? Are people hanging out? What happens?
Yeah, so the thing is, what you do in Upland, first of all, it's somehow, the way we launch is a property trading game, right? So when you purchase a piece of land, we gamify it in the sense of that you have maybe to collect now properties which are on the same street, or maybe 3 museums and so on. And when you complete that collection, you earn a higher yield on that property, right? So we're allowing users to do that. So that sets in motion the whole activity between the players, because they want to optimize their portfolio. That alone is the first, let's say, so-called game engagement point. We have other game engagement points. We have all the time, we have some activities in the app, some competitions going on. We have tours, live tours, where people can tour a city together with other players. We have treasure hunts, which are very, very popular, where people, they have to compete to find the treasure within the city. And soon we're going to have cars. We have cars alphas out there right now, but then soon you will be able to race, within San Francisco or Manhattan, and so that's also going to be lots of fun. So we're adding more and more those game engagement points. Also, we should not forget, also we have things where we have a partnership with the NFLPA, for instance, football. You can collect football digits, from your favorite players, and that's also gamified, because if you collect them, you get a fan score. The higher your fan score, the more likelihood is that you get a special get a special NFT then. So that's these kind of things we let users do in the app. However, Upland is also what we call the entrepreneurial metaverse. People can run or operate their own shops in Upland. So when you purchase an NFT, let's say what I just mentioned from the NFLPA, you can fire up your own store and sell those to other players, right? So you become a mini entrepreneur, which is part of our mission, is to create 100,000, if not millions, of entrepreneurs one day.
Super interesting. So initially it started out as more of an entertainment gaming kind of thing, and now it's becoming more and more serious, and people are actually you see it as being a place where people are actually going to do business.
No, everything actually. When you look at our tagline, our tagline up there, right? It says play, earn, connect, and it's so you have lots of things you can do to play, to have fun, entertainment, but also other places where you can eventually. This is all new about blockchain, where you can eventually extract monetary value. Can you earn some money? So that is what is new. And the connect pieces we don't have built out yet. Right now we have a huge community on Discord, but eventually we move some of the communication, some of the interaction, the social interaction also into Upland, right? So that's just not been integrated yet. So, but that's what you can do. It's not just about making money or so. It's about socializing. It's about fun and other things. At the end of the day, Upland is a platform. Yeah, and we currently, as the, let's say, the platform operator, we provide certain things, but we will be launching what is also called a third-party developer platform, where users will be able, or developers can put their own apps on top of Upland. So if you want to maybe build out a mini arcade, so people come to your property, you have built a house there, right? And then you go into that house, and then a mini arcade opens, and then you can have a mini game there. So these kind of things can be developed by other people, not just necessarily us.
Why did you decide to map it based on real life? What was the thinking? You mentioned about the monopoly, but yeah, I guess, was that the only reason? I just wonder whether that is limiting in any way if people don't recognize those locations, like say somebody from Europe wanting to participate.
Yeah, the funny thing is we have lots of people in Europe who are playing, for instance, now in San Francisco, and they said, right, oh, I know now San Francisco better than my hometown, because you have, you can investigate the city, we have Google Street View, can find out lots of things. So I don't think that this is really important, that you need to know the city, right? Of course, people very often come into the city where they live, because and then they purchase something because they purchase something where they live in real life, or they may purchase something close to the ocean, whatever, right? Or where celebrity has lived before and so on. But I think the whole idea of putting it into the real world is just the way how we position it. And at the end of the day, I think lots of people really enjoy that, because they understand, okay, in theory I can be there, but I'm not there. This plays a lot of into it, right? And this is also for us a clear differentiator, because we are the only, let's say, relevant real world metaverse out there where people, can purchase, real world properties, and that's something where we always say we are the non-fiction part of the metaverse, right? We always want to stay very close to reality. So I'll give you one example. When you want to go from San Francisco to New York, you cannot just go there and teleport yourself there. You actually need to take a plane, which takes time and money to get to there, right? Or when you want to build a house, it takes many weeks even to build a house, not just, within a second. Yeah.
Do you see that there may be some kind of relevance here to the tourism industry? Do you think in the future that something like Upland could be beneficial? Let's say, for example, if I wanted to travel somewhere, I could go into Upland. Let's say, like I want to go to Bali and I've never been there. I can go into Upland and I can go and explore, what it's like. And do you see a business model there? I mean, I see it for sure. Like that, let's say, for example, you're a hotel in Bali, you could have a presence in Upland in that part of the world, and that could be a really good way of attracting people to it, so that they can go in and explore a little bit.
No, absolutely. It's part of the business plan. And we're also working now with partners. We're talking to a hotel chain, right? What they want to do is, that people can go and explore the hotel before they go there, can walk through it. They can, and they can maybe potentially do, go to the reception and buy a room. I don't know whether that we are going to do it with them, but these kind of models we're discussing to potentially integrate into Upland in the future. But it has to stop there, right? When you think about it, right? When you let's say when you are an airline, right? I just mentioned the flying. You can maybe sponsor the flights for people, right? So that's some kind of advertising in terms of the travel industry, right? So you can also the cars. I mentioned cars. Maybe you want to, people going to rent a virtual whatever sports car, to drive around in a country where they want to be, and like this, they will go now to the car rental service and rent the same car, right? So since it's so blurred with the real world, or it's going to be even more blurred with the real world, there's endless possibilities you will be able to do. You do some stuff in the real world, and then the other, you complete other things in the physical, in the digital world, right? Or the other way around, right? That's how I think how the future is going to look like in 10 or 20 years, that you actually mix both worlds all the time together.
I see a big value there for, especially for people who are living in parts of the world where traveling is not easy for them. Like I grew up in Iran. It was very hard to get a visa, like to travel. Something like this could be really beneficial for, exploring the world outside and getting a feel for it. I remember the first time I left Iran, I went to Munich, and it was so interesting for me. It's so foreign. Like I was like, that was the first European city or Western city I had ever traveled to. And it was like, it wasn't like what I thought. I thought it would be a lot more industrial, but actually it was green, and it was like so green, so clean. And like, it really was like not, I imagined that all of Europe or all of West was like gonna be big buildings, like that's like New York, like that's what I thought. And then when I got to Munich, it was so different. So I see an opportunity for the metaverse, or at least what you're doing with Upland, to bring cultures together, to get people more familiar with what life is like in other places. So I'm really hoping that you will develop this for everywhere else. Like for me personally, like I would be much more interested in, going into Upland and exploring a place that I've never been to, like maybe some random city in Japan or something like that, like so tell me a little bit about the technology. Like how does that happen? The mapping, how is that different to, let's say, something like Google Earth, like is it like, how do you do this mapping?
Yeah, of course you have Google Earth out there, but when you look into Google Earth, for instance, you don't see the parcels of a property, right? You only see buildings, but you don't see the borders. So that's something we had to add into it. So we're working with a third-party provider, right, to get that data. But also we had to add some other data in to make it interesting or to fit our needs. Yeah. So it's quite easy to get this data in the US. In the rest of the world, it's not that easy. You just mentioned Europe. In some European cities or countries, we have access to parcel data, but in others, we don't. It's just not existent, right? Or it's prohibitive expensive. For some countries or cities just charge so much money. I don't know why they're doing it, right? But I would say it doesn't make sense. So then what we do is actually we have, a team, who looks at the parcels, and then using also some AI, and to understand, okay, how can we actually draw the property borders as close as possible to reality. Fact is, when you think about map data, there's no single source of truth, right? When you go into, let's say, also today in Apple Maps and Google Maps, things look different in there, even there, right? And of course, lots of things is similar, but you might find an address, which says, 22A, and in Google and in Apple says 24A for whatever reason. So these kind of things we always discover. And one thing is also with map data, and the world always changes, right? Properties get merged, they get divided, and everything, new streets are coming in, so it's very dynamic. It's not like you have a snapshot of the world and it's always the right. So you have to try to be as close and as correct as possible, right?
What are your thoughts on all the different platforms that are developing what they call a metaverse? Is there anything else out there that is interesting to you? And if it is, what are you finding interesting in them?
Yeah, first of all, since metaverse is such a hype word, everything calls herself or himself now metaverse. It's always tricky, right, to go through it. But in general, in Upland, we are a big proponent of the open metaverse, right? We say we don't want to be a closed shop as such. So that means or walled garden. What we introduce is what is called the NFT portal, where people will be able to import NFTs or assets from like a car or a digital art from other blockchains into Upland, and then maybe run and operate, digital art gallery, right, from Solana or Ethereum or what other blockchains are out there. Or you can also export them from Upland again. So that's one piece of the open metaverse. The other one is I actually co-initiated something that is called the Open Metaverse for Web3. That's an Open Metaverse Alliance for Web3, short OMA3. You find it also oma3.org. Where actually I invited all the big companies together, Sandbox, Decentraland of the Web3 space, together, said, hey, we have to work together. And we just, just recently announced that we're going to start that, organization. And we had actually within, we announced it, and, 2 days later, we had 750 companies signing up for it. Because they're all interested in that Open Metaverse Alliance approach. And why is that important? Because it's because we're living in a changing world. Because in the old world, right, you had always the platform who owned the users, right? But we want to change this paradigm, and we want to shift it in the direction we say, no, the user needs to be in control of his or her assets, right? And then be able to take the assets from one world to the other, right? So, and there's a lot of interesting, worlds I, would love to work together with.
What do you think big corporations like Apple, Google, Microsoft, like these big corporations, like the giants of the Web 2, how do you think they will play in this new space, in this in the metaverse world? I cannot imagine, for example, something like Apple staying out of this game.
Yeah, they will take their spin on it, right? I mean, if you look at Facebook rebranded itself to Meta, and they have a platform called Horizon, right, which is some kind of a metaverse. I know Microsoft has announced something, the B2B space, or is doing already things there. Apple, I haven't heard a lot of things yet. And again, I cannot speak really for those companies, seeing what is public knowledge, right? So I think if they see that this is a revenue opportunity, obviously they're going to jump in. That's for sure, right? But the question is, will they be the leader? Because when you have technology waves, right? When you think about, right, the 2000s were pretty much with the where Google came up with search and so on. Then late 2000s and early 2010s was basically Facebook with the whole social media, right? So I think we're probably going to see, of course, the old players playing in that field, right? Because the metaverse is like the internet, is like somehow, no one owns the metaverse as such, right? But I'm very sure also that we're going to have new players coming in, right? So people no one is aware of as of today. Yeah, maybe Upland is one of them. Let's see.
Well, you've been around for quite some time. So, which blockchain is this on?
We're based on the EOS blockchain.
Okay. And do you have your own token?
No. Well, yes and no. Let's say it like this: we have an internal token, right? Which is because we're based in the US, for regulatory reason, you cannot trade on an exchange. One's called Apex, which you have to buy with dollars, or Spark, which is a token which you need to build something in Upland, like a house or like a car or something. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And what's the next thing from here? Like, what's your plan moving forward? Is it just basically to keep building new parcels of land? Is that like just expanding it? Is this the idea?
Yeah, multiple ways, right? First of all, we want to add more features. We always say we're going through the 3 phases, right? The first phase was basically where we said the infrastructure, right? Basically the land. We continue selling land, right? On one hand, right? But then we said the second one is the economy, right? Where we say, okay, people start building their businesses in Upland and so on. So we give them the tools to do that. And then the third one is actually where we say we're going phygital, right? When we're merging really with the physical world much more, what we don't do yet so much, right? Except that we're based on the real world, right? But where you can do stuff and so. But overall, Upland is a platform. Eventually, we want to have lots of different stakeholders, people coming in. They can be creators, developers, lots of people who come into the platform and build on top of it, and create their own existence there, and find new ways of finding customers, engaging people, and what have you.
Okay, awesome. So as people listen to this, what would you like them to do? What's the next, step that you would like them to take? You'd like them to go to Upland, follow you on social media.
Yeah, you can follow us on social media like Upland Me, right? That's there. Or you go to our website, upland.me, or you download the app. What I always recommend is a metaverse is not like a game, right? If you take, for example, let's say grab one Angry Birds, you download it, you immediately understand how it works, right? Metaverse is a little bit more complex, but I always compare it with when you go and travel, you went to Munich, you said, right? If you would have just traveled to Munich and landed there and, you don't know where to go, where the sightseeing spots are and so on, you need a guide. Either you buy a book who tells you where to go, or you maybe find a friend or whatever, right? It's the same in Upland. But the way you do it in Upland is either you go in Discord, right, which has a used community, has a newcomer channel, right, where people take you on your hand and explain you things, or you go on YouTube, where we have tons of content being created every day, right? Really for beginners, how to get started, until how to do the best deals and how to trade and all that. So it's a lot of interesting content you find, especially in those. And we have also some Twitch live streams, for instance, right? But it's not just us creating; it's lots of other people also.
So what is the most complete city that you have that you think, like if you were going to say to someone, this is where to start, where would be the best place to go?
Well, a good place to start actually is not in a complete city. Was in that not complete city, you can actually get still some properties which are a little bit cheaper. Because if you go today to Manhattan, San Francisco, because it's a secondary market, you cannot purchase everything from Upland directly anymore. You have to buy it from another player, and then of course the secondary market prices are increasing. But in terms of completeness, you can, of course, go to Manhattan, Chicago also, or San Francisco, where people build a lot of things there. And there you find also a lot of, small communities, so-called nodes, who putting themselves together and, around certain things and areas.
So San Francisco is where to start right now.
That's was our starter city. It's a good place to see what's going on, but to start, I would recommend today rather go to Detroit or Nashville, and also in Los Angeles. You still find properties which haven't been touched by anyone. So.
And do you need to actually buy property in order to hang in there, or if you don't have property, can you still go and visit?
No, you can still go and visit, right? You can sign up and you can always stay a visitor. You can participate in treasure hunts or other things. You can do that. But eventually you want to have your, you want to have a property there. Also, you can designate your home address there, because when you designate your home address in the future, we will be able to do some voting, for instance, what you, together with other people in your neighborhood, you can vote what should be built or other things, so it's going to be very interesting. There's a really bottom-up approach, democratic approach, how to bring your neighborhood in the digital world forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been super interesting. I have not explored it yet. So now I have a better understanding, and I really feel like I'm going to talk to my client who's got it and say, you've got to show me how to do it. And I'm going to go and explore myself as well. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I will be following your development. And I'm really actually super interested to see whether you do anything in regards to tourism and, what we discussed, the kind of developments that might be happening in that area, which also could be super interesting to bring in the hospitality industry into this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have to mix it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dirk Lueth of Upland. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and write a review. The full interviews are also available on my YouTube channel, The Somi Arian Show.